Welcome to One Nation. I'm Brian Kilmeade. Thanks for dating early. Amongst my great roster of guests, we got Yu Hewitt here to break down the Trump game plan for winning in about, 70 days. Tony Robbins on the scary situation in America with child trafficking. And Miranda Devine breaks down the taunting of Barack Obama. Why does he keep doing that to Donald Trump? It doesn't usually end good for President Obama. We'll discuss that. But first to 2024. The race is really heating up. And this week we saw a glimpse of Kamala Harris on the big stage as Democrats and celebrities alike threw their support, but no Beyonce, behind the current vice president. But I think we are all forgetting what they really thought about her in the first place just a few months ago. That's before Biden was forced to step aside, or should I say, kicked to the curb by his own party. Remember what they used to say about her on the ticket?
I really want to defer to what makes Biden comfortable on his team.
Is Vice President Kamala Harris the best running mate for this president?
He thinks so, and that's what matters.
You say, I don't know why you can say. The answer is you could say yes. You could say, yes, I think Kamala Harris is the best vice president and the best running mate for President Biden. That's the answer you could be giving right now. Yes, she is.
So I've not seen any public opinion polling. You might be a stronger vice presidential running mate than her.
Wow. Remember that. It's not too long ago. Not only did we have our concerns, they had concerns within their own party. So before we go and cast a vote, that's you and me. Just think about the sudden change of heart. What's behind it in their own party? Because there's so much going on below the level. I'm just wondering what's on the level. Fox News contributor Douglas Murray, outstanding columnist and writer himself, joins us now. All right, Douglas, great to see you. Why the change of heart amongst Democrats? Why are we to believe they suddenly love her and think she's a female Barack Obama?
It's one of the great tricks I've seen in my life covering politics. Just a couple of months ago, the Democrats were, of course, pretending that Joe Biden was going to be a great president for another 4 years. And then they realized that didn't stand up. They knew they couldn't get Kamala Harris aside if she wanted to run for the top office, and so they couldn't. They just couldn't. And so a woman who was appointed by Joe Biden was chosen because of her characteristics, by the way. And they've made this such an unsayable thing, but you have to say it anyway. Biden said he was going to select a black woman as his VP, and he did. And there are lots of competent black women in the country. But he decided, instead of deciding, I will just choose the most talented person irrespective of their characteristics, he said, I'm going to choose from among 7% of the population, because it has to be a black woman. And, Kamala Harris hasn't done a great job by any means as VP, but they couldn't stop her, again, because of her characteristics. They couldn't stop her for running for and possibly getting the most important job in the world. It's amazing.
So, Douglas, you remember she had a great opening speech to say, I'm officially a candidate in 2020. Everyone thought she was going to be the top of the line, and then it all fell apart. And as vice president, it never got on track. But now as a presidential candidate, we're supposed to believe it's all perfect. You wrote an op-ed for The Spectator I thought was important. Whether she wins or not, let's not pretend that there's a glass ceiling, because there isn't. Why do you say that?
Oh, I mean, this is all part of the trap that the Democrats keep on trying to lay. There's this belief, it's not just America, but most Western democracies are caught in it at the moment. There's this belief that we have to keep on doing firsts. So Americans in 2008 elected their first black president. They then had to re-elect the first black president 4 years later, because you couldn't not re-elect the first black president. Hillary Clinton wanted to be the first female president in 2016, and surprisingly, the public didn't want her. And then that was turned as being the public's fault. How could the public have missed this historic opportunity to make a woman president for the first time? They were made to make up for it 4 years later by the 2-for-1 offer, of course, that the first female vice president and the first female black vice president could be voted for in Kamala Harris. And now we're going to once again get and now you have another chance to vote for the first female president. Well, The thing is that there are other criteria to run for the most important office in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, I liked competency, and I liked track record, and I liked success. They were always good ones. And the really interesting thing that Kamala Harris and the Democrats now have to pull is Kamala Harris knows exactly what to do about the border if she becomes president. But strangely, as vice president, she didn't know what to do about the border. She says simultaneously she wants to take credit for the economy, such as it is, but she also says that she needs to fix the economy. So all these questions that are around her don't get answered, and that's why the Democrats will not allow her to appear in front of the media, and why they won't allow her to sit down for interviews, and why they won't put her in front of town halls, because she can't answer these questions, and they know it.
Right. Well, she's going to have to do it in a debate, and it's up to the Trump team to get it out and maybe push her to do interviews. Even 4 or 5 questions after an event could get her into deep trouble if the past is prologue. Yeah. You also talk about something else that is near and dear to you and what's happening with Israel since the October 7th attacks. She tried to do both sides in her speech that's heavily lauded. Say, we're going to back Israel, but by the way, what's going on, we need a ceasefire now, and what's going on in Gaza has got to stop, and innocent people are suffering. She's missing the point. Those innocent people are suffering because of Hamas, and she doesn't seem to get that, nor does anyone in that United Center over the week.
It was astonishing. And by the way, these thugs outside the DNC, I mean, they would just seem to have been allowed to operate with impunity in attacking motorists, smashing a car window of a driver just trying to drive through Chicago. Well, how do these people keep on getting away with it? These Antifa and pro-Palestinian, so pro-Hamas protesters. It's amazing. But yes, I mean, that's outside the convention. Inside, Kamala decided to pander to them. I thought that the biggest cheer of the night she got in this section was not when she was talking about the hostages. She said, by the way, that she and Joe Biden work 24 hours every day trying to get the hostages back. That's pretty amazing to hear, not just because we know that Joe Biden can't work 24 hours a day and can't work much more than 6, but also because, of course, they have done very little and said very little about the Americans still being held hostage in Gaza by Hamas. But then she made, as you say, this unbelievable moral equivalency between the Israelis who had their people attacked and kidnapped on the 7th and the citizens of Gaza who voted in Hamas, who carried out this massacre. You know, Kamala Harris and the American public wouldn't like this if it was done any other way around. After 9/11, when 3,000 Americans were killed, America quite rightly took the opportunity to destroy Taliban training camps in Afghanistan and elsewhere. And very few people who called themselves an ally of the U.S. at that point would have said, you know, on the one hand, the Americans lost 3,000 people, but on the other hand, make sure you're wary about the goat herder in Helmand who, happened to have a Kalashnikov. They didn't do that. That's not how an ally behaves. I know. But Kamala Harris is in hock to a very radical wing in her party, and it's a wing that was outside the convention center.
Real quick, breaking late on Friday, we found out that 5 agents have been put on leave, Secret Service agents, for the assassination attempt in Donald Trump's life that almost came off on July 13th. I think this is just the beginning, and I have huge questions on the would-be assassin, who thankfully is dead. We know very little on his motive. We know very little about him. Why?
It's astonishing, Brian. I'm very concerned about this. This was such a near miss, an assassination attempt on a former president running to be president again. And this has just been blown over by much of the news cycle. Most of the press seemed to decide that it was a non-story a day later. But why don't we know the story of the shooter? Why don't we have any idea of motives all these weeks out? Why are there so many questions that still need to be asked and need to be answered? And, I very much fear this is going to be one of these things that's memory hold, like the Las Vegas shooter, and we just sort of don't learn about it. Well, we should keep pressure up to make sure we do. I hear you. And find out more from Douglas Murray. You see how fascinating and insightful he always is. Around the country, he's going to be at the Beacon Theater, where Jerry Seinfeld often plays, starting in September. Check him out. Certainly worth the price of admission. Douglas Murray, thanks so much. Great to see you, Brian. Now this.
He doesn't actually fight for the middle class. Instead, he fights for himself.
The other guy who's proved, even more than the first go-around, that he's about me, myself, and I.
who will fight for me? Who's thinking about my future, about my children's future, about our future together? Donald Trump is not losing sleep over that question.
Really? Of all the accusations against Donald Trump, this to me is the most unsubstantiated. Please explain why Donald Trump is suddenly selfish. He lost about $1 billion of his own wealth since he started running for president. The PGA doesn't sanction tournaments on his golf courses anymore, even though they're the best in the world. There are multiple threats on his life. I don't know if you've been paying attention. One as late as Thursday. His family oftentimes eviscerated in the press for no reason. His youngest son, Barron, 3 separate schools as a teenager, as a young teenager, now has to navigate New York as he goes to college. Please tell me where Donald Trump has benefited from running for president of the United States. Where is this selfishness coming from? I want to ask a very important guy, Hugh Hewitt, host of the Hugh Hewitt Show. We've saw a lot over the last few days at the Democratic convention. But let me ask you, why are they doing this? Why is every one of these speakers making Trump out to be selfish?
Well, when you have nothing to run on, you run against the other person. Old law rule, if the facts aren't with you, argue against the witness. If the witness isn't with you, argue the facts. If they're both against you, law and facts, just insult everybody. That's what they're doing here. Donald Trump was on my radio show on Wednesday, Brian, and he brought up the fact his name had been mentioned 100 times. That was on Wednesday. It got more on Wednesday and Thursday night. It's all about being against Donald Trump. They don't have a platform other than price controls and $25,000 for new home buyers and a tax on unearned income, which is radical and probably unconstitutional. If you don't have a platform, all you can do is attack Donald Trump. And what the great Douglas Murray just said, he likes competency, track record, and success. Donald Trump was competent. He has a track record. I want the Trump economy pre-COVID back. And he had success to regulating the country. So on those 3 things, I'm happy to talk about Donald Trump all day long. But the insult fest in Chicago, I had the same reaction that you did. Why are they doing this? Because they got nothing to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, his life was real good. And for the last, he's been 3 times now, we're talking about 12 years, he's been in the eye of the storm, literally. And now we find out about Kamala, and let's take a look at what she's going to do. She's going to raise corporate rates from up to 28% from 21%. She's going to look into taxing unrealized gains, which seems the most un-American thing you can do. Tax you on gains you perceive to have made as if you cashed out. And she's going to implement price controls and crack down on gouging. Is this an economic plan? While, by the way, claiming to back fracking while it's still in a pause right now in places like Pennsylvania? Is this the type of plan you can rally around?
I don't think so. And I want to pause on that last thing. I tried to watch the entire Democratic convention as though I were in Pennsylvania. Now, I grew up about 7 miles from Pennsylvania in Warren, Ohio. I know the state pretty well, and I'm on in every major market as you are, Brian, across all the states. So I try and think like a Pennsylvanian. This convention had nothing in it for them except a written statement that Kamala Harris is no longer in favor of absolutely banning fracking. I think that means she'll smother it slowly with a pillow. But if you're in Pennsylvania, what was in this convention for you? Moreover, the last 3 or 4 times that Democrats have won the election, they had Scranton Joe on the ticket. They had a guy with Pennsylvania roots on the ticket. He's not on the ticket anymore. Meanwhile, the number of registered Democrats and Republicans have shrunk down to 50,000 pro-Democrat from a much higher number in 2012 and in 2016. So I'm feeling pretty good about the Keystone State. I think it's key to this election, absolutely. But I don't believe the fracking ban reversal. And I think the idea of taxing unrealized gains, it's a little bit above the head of most people. They don't really know what it means. What it means is they make up a number they think you're worth, and the IRS comes and tax you on that part which they think you're already have put in the bank and you haven't put in the bank. It's pretty outrageous. It's insane. Trump's got 2 breaks. Him and Brian Kemp seem to have made amends so they can rally together in Georgia. That's going to help. And RFK dropping out of the race and seemingly very angry at Democrats. He says it's cost him $100 million just to fight off their lawsuits because he decided to be an independent. Your thoughts about what that means? Well, months ago, I did an event with Heidi Heitkamp, former senator from, Nebraska. And Heidi and I were asked by a member of the audience, who is Robert Kennedy going to hurt more? And we both said, Trump. He's going to pick up the anti-COVID, anti-vaccine people. He's going to pick up the folks who are dislocated from politics. So I thought he was going to hurt Trump. Heidi Heitkamp thought he was going to hurt Trump. his dropping out is a big win for Trump. I think this is a jump ball. I don't think a Republican should be doing a victory dance. It depends a lot on the debate ahead, or the debates if there are two, and it depends on focus on Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, because there's no way for Kamala Harris to win without all three of those states. And I think Pennsylvania is the one that Donald Trump's got to put the most focus on.
I got that theme, and if he's watching, he gets that message. And RFK, if he goes out there, I think he could help Trump, too. I think they do like each other personally. Thanks so much, you. Always great. This is why your radio show is so popular. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Brian.
All right, coming up straight ahead, a new film exposing the dark and scary truth about human trafficking in our own country. Tony Robbins is here to explain his new movie. But first, big-time Dems are taking pages from an old playbook that didn't go well the first time. We'll explain next, only on One Nation. Welcome back. This week, we watched President Obama do it again.
There's the childish nicknames, the crazy conspiracy theories, this weird obsession with crowd sizes.
So, at a time where friends and foes alike are telling Donald Trump, stop with the personal attacks, talk about policy, we have one of the most respected politicians in America doing the same thing. Because we've seen this before, Barack Obama. You should know better. Taunting Trump doesn't work.
I continue to believe Mr. Trump will not be president. President Obama will go down as perhaps the worst president in the history of the United States! Exclamation point at real Donald Trump. Well, at real Donald Trump. At least I will go down as a president. No one is prouder to put this birth certificate matter to rest than the Donald. And that's because he can finally get back to focusing on the issues that matter. Like, did we fake the moon landing? Say what you will about Mr. Trump, he certainly would bring some change to the White House. Let's see what we've got up there.
That was so bad, even Obama's team acknowledged in retrospect that he went too far. This all reminds me of a scene from Rocky III.
Ain't so bad, ain't so bad, ain't so bad. Come on, ain't so bad. Yeah, you come on, you must be crazy or something. I'm crazy. You just a stupid. Yeah, maybe you crazy something. I ain't breathing heavy.
Life is all revolving around the Rocky series. Joining us now to discuss this, and maybe Rocky, Fox News contributor and fantastic writer herself, Miranda Devine. Miranda, were you surprised? Great to see you. Thanks for being here. Were you surprised at the taunts that President Obama should know better by now?
Thanks, Brian. No, I wasn't surprised at all, actually, because that's all they have. The entire convention is all about the Democrats pretending to be more Republican than Republicans, and then just insulting and degrading and demonizing Donald Trump. No policies, no real vision for the future beyond vibes. And all they have is these tawdry, nasty little insults, which they're not really even very good at. They're not funny. They're just nasty. And Donald Trump is the master. He is the insult comic par excellence. And when he insults people, generally, he makes it hilarious.
True. I would like him to say more policy. I do think they're trying to bait him to a degree. But for President Obama in particular, those clips make him look absolutely terrible because it helped propel Donald Trump to the White House. Maybe he'll do it again. The other thing I noticed, and you probably did too, is all of a sudden the Democratic Party is red, white, and blue. They're wrapping themselves in the flag. They're talking about patriotism. I mean, I love it. I love the country. I like patriotic talk. But since when wasn't being patriotic a trigger on the left?
Look, it is so unusual. It's to see them chanting USA, USA, you would think at times you were at a Trump rally. They brought out the American flags yesterday. I mean, normally they say that the American flag is racist and makes you a domestic terrorist if you display it. It really triggers them. And you know, you had Oprah talking about common sense. You had Pete Buttigieg boasting about being on Fox News. They really are pulling out all stops. stops to try and reassure the sort of never-Trumpers, the people who didn't vote for Donald Trump during the primaries, that the Democratic Party is a safe space, a welcoming place for conservatives. And they capped it off, of course, with schmaltzy Tim Walz with his flannel and camo and pretending to be, you know, the rural white guy conservative. He is the most radical leftist in sheep's clothing that we've ever seen.
That's true.
So I think it's all phony. No conservative is going to buy that.
I also think a few miles away is the real story. Inner cities run by Democratic mayors and attorney generals are falling apart. Violence is raging. Case in point, Lawrence Jones. He went out to that part of Chicago that's being fenced off from the DNC. Listen to what he found.
Tell me about how you lost your first son.
Started from an argument. Usually when I hear gunshots, the first thing I think is the kids outside. And when I got outside, he was shot.
Do you hear gunshots a lot?
I done been all over Chicago, so yeah.
Do you think our leaders are doing a great job to solve this crisis?
People are so used to hearing about gun violence and drugs and drug overdoses and things of that nature. It's really sad.
What would be your message to the leaders in the Democratic Party?
To actually do something for the community.
Inner city, the urban voters usually vote Democrat. Do you think something could change now? And how bad is it that they're not even brought up?
Look, you know, Chicago, like many blue cities, has been in the grips of the Democrats for almost 100 years. And the misery that the Chicagoans now suffer is the proof of how awful the Democrat policies are, whether it's, you know, soaring crime, debt, people leaving the city, crumbling infrastructure. A person is shot every 2 hours in Chicago. Someone dies every 17 hours from shooting. And most of those are black people who are treated like the Democrats as if they are their slaves, as if they just are beholden to them and have to vote for them. It's despicable the way the powers that be in the Democratic Party so cynically use their base. They use their voters, they lie to them, they put the fear of God into them. And look, I also saw vox pops in Chicago of people on the South Side, black voters, saying they were Trump all the way because they remember how they prospered when Trump was president.
Somebody's got to care and someone's got to take action. Philadelphia, they're saying this is my story. San Francisco, Los Angeles, and now San Diego, they're saying this is my story too.
New York.
Miranda, yeah, of course, New York City. Miranda, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Brian.
You got it. Meanwhile, coming up next, the one and only Tony Robbins joins us to talk about the dark reality of child trafficking in America. And by the way, remember, we want to hear from you. Send us a video of you on the show. There's something that you want on the show. And if we use your video, we're going to send you some swag. Yes, it says One Nation on it. If you've already got it, you go on vacation, take One Nation on vacation, and guess what? You take a picture, send it to us, and we'll put it on too. We're nice people. Inspired by true events of a young Mexican boy trafficked across the border. He thinks freedom is on the other side in America, but instead, he's sold to a sweatshop. The film shedding light on the global crisis of child trafficking. It's happening right now. It's affecting more than 12 million kids. Joining us right now with more on this grueling tale and why you got to see when it comes out in theaters Friday. Author and executive producer of the film. It's called City of Dreams. Tony Robbins. We know him well. Good friend of the show. And director Mo Ramchandani join us now. Welcome, guys. Thanks for joining us. Congratulations on the production. Mo, what prompted this for you?
You know, I'm originally from India. I'm an immigrant, and my family were kicked out of their home in 1947 when the British left, and my dad worked in a sweatshop-like conditions, so it was always at the back of my mind. But when I read about a case in El Monte, California, where there were 72 immigrants trapped in a residential location, and you know, they were a sewing factory, and they hadn't seen sunlight in 7 years, I couldn't believe that this was happening in America, and that's really what motivated me to tell this story.
And Tony, you have so many people coming up to you with causes on a regular basis. Why did you sign on and executive produce this?
Well, because my wife and I have been involved in stopping trafficking for the last 8 years. Someone originally introduced me to a group that was saving people, and I went undercover with these guys, former SEAL Team 6 guys, CIA. They had scars on my face so I wouldn't be recognized. And we did 4 days in Haiti and saved 37 children. It was one of the most disgusting things, Brian, I've ever seen in my life, to see these children chained to a bed, doing 7-8 tricks a day, and then turning around and having these people being sold. It just was crazy. But the beautiful thing was seeing the freedom. So we've worked together with a whole series of organizations to free over 50,000 children in the last 7 years, my wife and I. But this film is so amazing because, people hear about trafficking, but they think of it as over there. This is happening in the United States. And what I love about this is slave labor. This is getting a chance on Labor Day weekend to wake people up to what's actually occurring. Because you know, 10 million people come across the border. It's too big. People can't even imagine. But when you follow one child's real life and you see what's going on with them, you can't help but feel it. And this is designed, it's a thriller. It'll keep you on the edge of your seat. An amazing film. It's got 100% in Rotten Tomatoes amongst the critics, which is unheard of. But also, it's a call to action in the end and shows you how you can really help to save children. So we're really excited about putting light on what's really going on here and waking people up to the reality.
Right. So here's another clip of the movie. Watch. I'm watching this, and you know what came out last week? A report that we are missing tens of thousands of unaccompanied minors. Once they cross the border, we have just lost track. Mo, don't you think that fits into this scenario?
No, 100%. And I will tell you what I learned, because before the mainstream media started reporting it, there was a New York Times expose last year. A buddy of mine who runs the West Coast division of the Labor Department 2 years ago said to me, Mo, a kid comes across the border and we process him, and then we ask him, we give him a meal, we ask him, where are you going? And he says, I'm going to see Uncle Juan in Arizona. So we then pay to have this kid taken to Uncle Juan. And then we find out 5 or 6 months later that Uncle Juan, we've sent 900 kids to Uncle Juan. He's not an uncle, he's a trafficker. And I had no idea. It wasn't out in the mainstream media at the time. It was all happening while I was making the film. So yes, that is a very, very serious issue that I think we need to resolve. But we also need to look at the kids. There's, the statistics I'm hearing, there's over 500,000 children right now that have gone missing, and many of them have been sold into labor and sex trafficking. And we have to do something for them right now. Like they're stuck right now. Right.
Tony, what's the goal with this? It isn't, you want viewers, you want people to watch always, but you want something to come out of this, right?
Absolutely. We want to see new legislation. We want to see people be able to bring their voice to it. And there's organizations, believe it or not, when I started doing this 8 years ago, it would be $3,000 to $5,000 to save a child. There's some organizations out there that are literally wiping out whole cities of this. In Indonesia, for example, there's one city with a group we work with, Marici Foundation. They've eliminated 92% of trafficking because they're using big data, AI, and tracking who these people are. Nothing's been like this before. And you can save a life where they find these children and then they reintegrate them into society for $500. So people can actively participate as a volunteer. They can send money to organizations. They can write their congressman. We want to just wake people up. The first step, to stopping slavery was, Uncle Tom's Cabin, people really discovering what's really going out there and becoming enraged about it, activate about it. I think this film will really create that because it'll grab you. It's an amazing film, but it'll also really call you to action.
It's City of Dreams, and it's out, and it's Labor Day when it debuts, and it's really important and it's significant. Mo, I know you know how inspirational Tony is on a regular basis trying to help people. I see people blaming politicians for where their lives are right now, even though in America, in most situations, we're better off than 99% of the world. I remember a president that said this.
So, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
Once we're out of this political maze in November, do you think we got to, as Americans, start taking responsibility for our own lives and stop blaming the presidents?
Well, it's the only way people are happy. People's unhappiness is tied to feeling like events control them versus they control the events of their life. And as long as you're going to blame the system, and don't get me wrong, the system can be totally messed up, but we can overcome whatever the system is. We make these choices. That's what a democracy is. And I think for people to be able to have happiness and joy, we have to find something that we care about more than ourselves. Life is calling to us to give something, not to get something. But our culture has gone through a big swing where it's like, what's in it for me? And I think it exhausts. We exhaust these emotions. People are seeing how unhappy, unfulfilled, angry they are. I think we're going to find that balance. Whether it happens in the next 6 months or a year, I can't tell you that. Right. But at some point, we have to balance out if we're going to have a society that's sustainable and where people are truly happy and fulfilled.
And Mo, real quick, this is your mission, right?
100%. My mission from the beginning was films have the ability to change hearts and minds. They did me. I was a little boy. I watched Rocky. It changed my life. And that's why I decided to do this. And I hope that people will watch this movie and it'll make them angry. And it'll make them angry. And they will want to fight for these children.
All right, Tony and Mo, thanks so much, guys. Thanks for telling your story. Thanks for choosing this show to do it. I know it's going to be a huge hit in the theaters. Thanks, guys. All right, meanwhile, I'm going to go on stage. History, Liberty, and Laughs. Time to rediscover patriotism and have some fun. I'll be in Peekskill, New York. It's all part of Fox Nation, too. For Fox Nation specials, we in there about 1,000 seats. So you can go to foxnation.com or go to briankilmeade.com and just click on there. VIP opportunities. I can talk to you before and
Nối điểm đầu và điểm cuối. Tạo thành một mũi Bắc. Hàng tiếp theo. Tiếp tục móc thêm một mũi Bắc trung chân. Ở hàng này móc 2 mũi Bắc trung chân. Xong 2 mũi Bắc trung chân thứ nhất. Hai mũi Bắc trung chân lần thứ hai. Năm mũi kép trung chân. Nối điểm đầu và điểm cuối. Hai mũi Bắc trung chân lần thứ ba. Năm mũi kép trung một chân. Hai mũi Bắc trung chân lần thứ tư.